Hello and welcome to the Spark of Ages podcast. Today we're talking with Brian Litvack, co-founder of LeagueApps, a company based out of New York which is dedicated to empowering youth sports leaders, owners, operators, and admins who dedicate their lives to the players and game, especially investing in the people that make it happen. Brian has been operating and building in this space since he graduated from the University of Michigan, an awesome school. Go Wolverines.
Yay, go Wolverines. Yay. Everybody loves the Wolverines.
My son and daughter-in-law both went there. So
and our producer.
And the producer.
Too many. I'm surrounded by Wolverines, and none of you look like Hugh Jackman. So but fine.
Brian attended the Ross School of Business as an undergrad, and over the last decade, he built LeagueApps into a company that supports over 3,000 sports organizations. I was working on 300,000. Probably 300,000 teams.
After this episode, after he gets the Spark of Ages bump, it'll be 300,000.
It'll be 300,000. But maybe I could definitely see probably 300,000 teams, maybe 3 million teams. He's processed over $5 billion in transactions. It's reached over 10 million players and parents and coaches and impacted 250,000 kids through the nonprofit Fund Play organization. And just to name drop, a few of LeagueApps investors are MLB, Major League Baseball, Julie Foudy, David Robinson, the LA Dodgers, Shane Battier, and Swin Cash. Some of the key takeaways you can expect from this episode.
It's a lineup.
Yeah, it's an awesome lineup. The number one, we're going to talk about the problems in youth sports and how we solve them. Number two, what the effect private equity will have on youth sports. That'll be an interesting topic. And number three, what LeagueApps go-to-market strategy is and how they authentically drive it. And I'll throw in a fourth, what drives Brian to be so successful and engage with the rest of the world like this. Brian, welcome to the show. Welcome to Spark of Ages.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here today.
I actually played with some of these apps. We had Team Snap when I was on the board of directors of the Stanford Soccer Club that supported our youth group. And then eventually we moved to another application that's a more local one, Biga. So it's really cool to meet and talk with you about it because I went through all kinds of stuff working with these applications and how to run a club at scale. So tell us a little bit about, into the story of what got you to start LeagueApps.
Yep. So in 2000, all the way back to 2010, we had been working on a different startup that was about connecting adults to play sports with each other in local communities. It was a problem we were trying to solve for ourselves, where you can find an extra player on your softball team or a tennis partner or a group to go running with. And at the time, it was go offline to get on, or go online to get offline. It was kind of the motto of helping use technology to connect people to enjoy and experience sport. And we wanted to have more impact. And the way we recognized we could through software and technology was by helping our super users. And our super users of our community were the people that actually organize sport within those communities. So in every town across the US, there's a full community, vibrant community of parents and kids participating in sports. And then there's usually a half dozen to a dozen people who make it their responsibility. Sometimes it's their full-time job. Sometimes it's volunteer to actually organize and produce sport. And we saw them and we recognized no one goes to college and majors in sports logistics, in local youth community sports logistics. But a lot of people have incredible passion and philanthropy and influence to want to be able to impact and affect sports within communities. And we recognized the opportunity to build the tools. What I like to say is, we started this to help communities organize sports. When a decade plus later, we recognize we're a vertical SaaS payments company. But at the core of it was very much taking this mission that we had with our previous company of creating amazing sports experiences and recognizing that by actually being a B2B software platform, for a space that back in 2010 didn't really have much software, that's the way we could have the most impact and the most influence on how sports is organized. And we've been very fortunate that since that time, in 2010, we just gradually grown our business and our organization and our influence to Rajiv, as you mentioned. We have over 3,000 sports communities using LeagueApps to really be the system of record and power everything that happens within their community, from registration and payments to communication, messaging, scheduling, program management, reporting and analytics, websites and mobile apps for the coaches, parents, and players, and trying to be that core operating system that a sports community can use to allow them to do what they want to do and what they love to do, which is actually, create these amazing sports experiences and make sports happen in their community.
That's right. It's really so basically the idea of this is that if it's totally volunteer run, there may be an organization, and then they let the teams run themselves, and each team would create or use a platform like yours and organize their team that way, right? They'd have their coaches, the rosters, the game schedule, who does what, when. But then of course, when you go to a tournament or something, you got to share expenses. You got to let people know about buying uniforms or the team parties and all that. And that's one level, right? And then you end up going up another couple levels when you actually have an organized, like a club level system, right? That's something run by by a central organization. The staff is paid. There's all these levels that you're moving kids from one team to another based on certain assessments. So I'm sure it's gotten much like. Did you start it from the team level thought, or did you start it from like the organizational level?
Yeah, so we really took an approach that the sports organizer in the community is one of the most kind of unsung heroes and has a thankless job, because they have to go out and get permits. And as you mentioned, uniforms, and there's a lot of logistics. They have a lot of volunteers, whether they're for profit or nonprofit. And if you think about it, each weekend there's multiple events going on all over the community at different fields where you have to get equipment and you have to deal with families and parents and you have to look at the weather and you have all these considerations. And they just didn't really have much technology built for them to help them achieve this. And in many ways, they were the super users, as I mentioned, of our community, because they were looking for help with promotion. They were looking for help with website. They were looking for help with attracting players. So we saw the benefits that we want to bring them is save them time, workflow automation. This is what SaaS companies are really great at, right? How can we help a sports operator just move information around, collect information, collect payments more efficiently and effectively so they can be on the field instead of doing admin tasks all the time? We wanted them to help them grow their organization. So, we wanted to help them create a better experience for the coaches, parents, and players in their organization. And we wanted them to help them optimize their funds, whether that is a for-profit organization that's making a livelihood, or whether it's a nonprofit or a community organization that just wants more funds to invest back into the program. So that's where we saw that software, technology, and data can have this, more impactful influence in how sports are organized within communities. And then what's nice about software, you can really scale that much more than if you were an operator yourself. And that's where we've been able to partner with 3,000 sports clubs or organizations across the country right now.
It's awesome. Really cool. My question is how do you have anything in your app or in your operating system to help these community organizers, these super users, sort of protect them from people like my brother, these sideline coaches that yell at the kids to do better?
What's wrong with that?
Is there anything to help them for that?
Come on. No, this is what I used to say to kids. No, this is what I used to say when I was the coach and when I became the manager of the team, right? The players play, the parents cheer, the coaches coach, right? So that's one of the messages you have to convey to folks.
Right. Actually, Rajiv is not a big perpetrator of this, but
I've said some stuff. So
okay, maybe you were.
Sandeep, you joke, but the parents' exuberance bordering on irrationality around how to behave on sidelines of watching their kids' sports in every community is something that has room for improvement across our society. And what I like to say is, you can't really sit next to your kid in school and root for them to do well on the test or live vicariously for how they do in science lab.
That's right.
But you can do that in youth sports. And many parents spend as much time with their kids in youth sports activities from the age of 4 or 5 up until high school than any other thing that they're doing with their child, between their child's school and their work. So it really becomes a whole family experience. And I think oftentimes the way parents parent is the way that they act on the sideline and the way that they behave. And, I'm part of something called the Positive Coaching Alliance, which is just trying to help put perspective into most of youth sports is really about character development and self-discovery and learning and having great experiences. Before this show, I was talking about the producer of this show was one of my all-time favorite teammates. We played sports together in middle school and high school. And those memories and those lessons are as much as I got out of sport as competitive accomplishments. And I think a lot of times in youth sports today, it's about being competitive and excelling is the focus, where it should really be about development of sports skills and life skills, and then all the amazing things that go with being part of a team that you could take with you in your different parts of groups and organizations. And I think many of the best sports operators want to focus on that. And one of the things that we often work with them is, how do you put your core values and the things that you care about most front and center of your organization? So it's not just about, winning or competitiveness or, a path to college scholarship, which oftentimes becomes, you mentioned at the show, the problems. And I hate to say the problems, they're not problems. They're just like how youth sports has evolved. And we want to make sure it continues to evolve where as many kids as possible have positive experiences and not evolve in some, way that just because it's a fragmented local industry, it's kind of uneven in those experiences, which sometimes happen, and which we believe with sports and technology and data, we can have impact and influence on having ability to make sure that those experiences are more positive for all.
It's amazing. I mean, here's when I got into it, and of course I have 4 kids, they're older now. I just thought this be this volunteer thing. And then it turns out that there's professional coaching. So I got my kid through AYSO, all 4 kids actually through AYSO. And then they all went and did various things. 3 of them went into the quote unquote club system. And it was just a whole different game, right? And so it's a different, you're traveling, you're doing tournaments every weekend. The coaches talk you into from soccer to futsal. You end up doing this whole machine, right? And then I realized with tournaments, it's actually a big industry. So as part of my Stanford Soccer Club, we have a yearly tournament, raised a ton of money for the club for scholarships that we use to pay coaches, right? Because we wanted kids from the community to play, from all over the community, not just those with money to play. So it's a bigger industry. And I say, compared to growing my company, this was actually easier. So let me give you some data. And then Brian, you can supplement the data.
Yeah,
so from we understand, sports youth market is a $37.5 billion industry as of 2022 and is forecast to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 9.2%. Until 2030. And if you see how much parents are spending on it, it's understandable. In 2021, 50.7% of youth aged 6 to 17 said they participated in a sports team, took sports lessons after school or on weekends.
So half.
That's right. Mm-hmm. In 2019, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services set a long-term objective of 63% of students playing by 2030. And maybe this additional movement, in addition to what they do in schools, enables that to happen.
So that's actually my question coming off this data. Like, I feel like half kids play sports. That's like, we can do better. Like, I just feel like just all those things you mentioned about sports and how incredible they are. But there's this stigma, right? Of like being a jock kid versus an art kid versus a whatever. I wonder if, I don't know how your technology plays into this, but if this is able to encourage sort of less of that stigma, and then maybe drive these numbers up. Because, there's only really positive benefits to kids playing sports and team sports, I think, personally.
Yeah, so one thing we're very aware of is, especially with iPads and cell phones and
yeah.
the rise of YouTube and the internet, that kids have more options now than they did in the previous generations. And those things are pretty addictive, and online gaming figures out how to use algorithms to help, keep the attention of kids. So for what we believe is that sports needs to continue to be an engaging experience for kids because they do have other options. And that if we can help the operators in local communities figure out how to best leverage technology to create those, amazing, positive, engaging experiences, that's what will lead to more participation. And to Sandeep, your point, everyone should have some type of sports activity that they can participate in and enjoy, right? Whether you're a super competitive, coordinated athlete or not, that they should have different levels and different sports and the ability to sample different types of activities. Some of the things that make sports unique is it's both wellness and exercise, and it has this whole team camaraderie, a feeling of being part of
belonging,
of something, right? Belonging.
Yeah.
And we long ago could have expanded into other verticals, esports or different types of activities, and we really wanted to keep the focus on team sport and go deeper in team sport because that's where we have the most passion. It's not every partner that we have to us isn't just a customer with an ARR score. It is a community that offers sports, and we take tremendous pride in saying we want to be their partner forever for the next generation, the generation after that, and then when they decide to partner with LeagueApps, the sports in their community is going to be better, or more productive, or more effective, or more inclusive than not, or than if they went a different direction. And I think that drives that's our mission. That drives a lot of our company. It's as much, we talk about our revenue is based off of payments processing. We've hit all kinds of milestones, and we're doing billions of dollars a year. But it's really the number of communities that we serve, the number of operators, and then the number of families that are using our platform to have better sports experiences is what kind of it thrills and motivates us to keep on going and keep on innovating on the things that we can do to help these communities.
That's awesome. And here's a few more stats just for you. Like, to Brian's point, if we got the full 63% of kids or 60+% of kids participating in youth sports, there'd be, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 1.7 million fewer kids who are overweight or experience obesity, about 147,000 fewer cases of diabetes, 59,000 fewer cases of cancer, 145,000 fewer cases of coronary heart disease. The economy would benefit $80 billion, $26 billion from medical costs, $53 billion from increased productivity, and they'd live an additional 1.8 million additional quality years of life. So it's about that quality of life. And I think you hit it, Brian. I just listened to a webinar about happiness, and happiness is not just having pleasure, but sharing it with others and creating memories. And really, that's what your app enables, right? It makes the life of the volunteer or the professional or the parents or the organizer much easier. So now your company, like, you started it, you built it up, you took an initial round of capital, and then I think 2021 is when you raised your Series B.
Yep.
So amazing. At least it was announced you raised $15 million. According to Crunchbase, I was able to find you're over 37 million-ish, plus or minus. So, awesome. That's obviously based on hitting amazing milestones. So where do you see as your growth path?
I think we're still in the early innings, using a sports analogy, of where we can go. And one of the reasons why is that technology is still and software is still in the early phase of how much it can really impact the experiences in youth sports. And it's still a fragmented market. There's not tech solutions for every aspect of it. It is complicated, some of the things that you need to do to organize sports. So we look at all of, again, I'll go back to the problem. Sometimes it's field space. well, how can you build marketplaces to help, make sure all field space is being utilized in the right way?
That's a huge problem in many communities, right? Like,
or the quality of fields, I would imagine, is also
finding good fields that aren't beat up and crappy. So,
right.
At least, we're in Silicon Valley in a pretty wealthy community, right?
Yeah.
So,
what are you talking about? All your fields are like friggin' Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm better than Dodger Stadium out there.
It's like,
come
it's
help
like
LA. Okay.
It's like Pebble Beach. No, but like you could either pay, it's fairly inexpensive to use the city fields, right? Which are pretty beat up, or you can buy these private fields or even the city fields that have turf on them. They're just, it's becoming, to enable kids to play, it gets harder and harder to find these great fields.
Well, I think it's inefficient. It's inefficient to match the fields with the right teams. There's sports like hockey that you really want efficiency because there's only so many rinks and sheets of ice out there. But so whether it's efficiency of field space utilization, whether it's better coach training, whether it's better safety compliance, which is things from sexual abuse prevention to background checks, like all of this stuff should be part of youth sports experience. You guys, it's great that you both have great experiences. And again, with Anand, your producer, we've had great sports experiences, but it doesn't just happen. You have to put in the conditions of having the right operators, the right coaches, and the right conditions to have a kind of safe, secure, protected environment for kids to play sports in. And there's still a lot to be done there. And we have an ambitious roadmap of things that we want to build. Again, we're going to look at it as how to use software, how to use data to help solve some of these problems that in a fragmented market that every community kind of does sports on their own. There's not that many authoritative associations or governing bodies here in the US. It's actually different than other countries. That it's really local, and it's very much falls on these local operators to create a great experience. And sometimes you go town by town, whether you're in the Bay Area, I'm on Long Island, or anywhere in the country, and the sports experience is different. They'll prioritize different sports, or they'll have different level of qualities. Right. And it's one of the fabrics of communities. It's one of the last places where people will congregate on the weekends and see each other and actually interact. And no matter what their political party is or their economic class, will be playing sports together. So we think that's pretty special. And, we think we can be the partner of these people within the communities who make it happen in all different ways.
So like what you mentioned, one, which is a really cool idea, creating a marketplace for fields. Are there other capabilities that you're building as part of that roadmap to scale? More community features or more, I know you don't want to tip off your competition necessarily, but what direction do you want to take?
After many years of really focusing on the operator, we're starting to focus in the last few years more on the coaches, parents, and players. So one of the things we're actually releasing in the next month is for the athletes themselves to log into the app. So we built safe messaging. We built COPA compliance. We wanted to make sure, though, that the athletes can interact with each other, interact with their coaches in safe and protected ways, so that they can get more, they could be part of the experience more digitally and get, whether it's training guides or it's feedback from coaches or connecting with the other players on their teams, and doing that in a way that is kind of compliant with all the safety standards that it needs to be, to allow them to take their experience with them before and after the game.
That's cool.
Not just when they're at the field. And what was happening is we had the parents can log in and do everything, but in this world, especially those athletes that are 13 to 18, giving them more opportunity to be able to use and engage with tools to help them, whether it's utility or more and more going to go into engagement and how to enjoy their experience. We haven't solved evaluation and report cards yet, but we think that should be part of every sports experience, is where you're getting progress reports or progress evaluations from your coach throughout the season. And one thing is to drag on coaches. Like if it's not easy for them to do, it's just like extra work in an already busy life. So how can we do that through voice notes? How can we do that through take a photo and mark it up? How can we do it through writing the app? So we're trying, that's one of the features that we're trying to develop, is like, what's the real way of allowing coaches to quickly give feedback to their athletes and to their parents, so that, a third grader can understand how they've progressed from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. One of the things that we really learned during COVID, so COVID was very difficult time for our business. Our revenue is all based on transactions processed, so that basically went down 96%. And
It's hard.
We were always proud that youth sports was recession proof, but we never took into account it was not pandemic proof. So what's happened, COVID happens and there's very little authority, and youth sports operators are pretty confused of what to do. Oftentimes county to county, there's different regulations. Are they allowed to practice? Are they allowed to put together programming? But what came out of COVID, which was really special for us, was how much youth sports is social and emotional learning and how imperative it is for the development of kids. And that it was no longer like this extracurricular activity. In many communities, youth sports came back even before school came back as something that we have to make sure our kids are allowed to do for them to kind of live healthy lives. So I think a lot of sport should be looked at as a form of education and a form of learning. And it's not quite there yet. There's not as much compliance. There's not as much credentials as there should be. But we look at every coach as an educator and as a teacher. And oftentimes the coach is one of the most influential or important role models for kids.
It's actually one of the few places where you get truly open and honest feedback. What I saw with my kids as they got older, and sometimes the coach would let me hang out in the huddle because I was in the club and all that, or helping to manage the club, was that they would, like the things they would say to my own kid that I could never get away with saying. I would hurt their feelings, but the coach could literally be like totally open with them because the kid knew that this is about helping them win. They were handling criticism in front of, or constructive criticism in front of others. It's just a special experience that you don't get in the classroom. Right. In many ways, you get on the field. It's really cool.
One of, in our interviewing process, we look for sports team captains, and I brag that we have the most sports team captains as a percentage of employees. It's something like 60% of our team has been a sports team captain at some point in their life, because that's really to what you just mentioned, how oftentimes teammates interact on the sports field would be so productive if they carry that over into the business world, and we're open and direct and accountable. And
that is so hard to do
focused
in the
on
business
results.
Context.
Yes. And then all that, it's so obvious in sports, and then it's, on the field, it's so easy to say, get back to your position. Or like, if you're tired, go to the sideline. But in business, it's for some reason not as obvious, but we often talk about that parallel.
Well, the goal is not quite as immediate, right? You're like literally talking about seconds matter when you're on the field, right? Inches matter. So you can make those calls, and you have to make quick calls. That's why, you're able to do that versus tying a bunch of ego into it. You just got to be in the moment, and you got to be looking at the whole field and assessing it, and you're placing it. And that's why I think you're open to that criticism.
Yeah, Brian, you're talking about the pandemic, and actually, how every youth sport organization's revenue went to zero. And the part that's most difficult about it was not just the kids and how they were impacted, but there's a lot of coaches that make their living on sports, on youth sports. It's how they live. That's their life. They take care. They really care for these kids. And so luckily for us in our soccer club, one of the most satisfying things for me is that because in my role in the soccer club, how we ran tournaments, we raised enough capital. With that combined with the government PPP program, we're able to pay those coaches during a critical time. So having a product like yours, which helps people organize much more effectively, can make a huge difference, especially in tough times.
One thing I want to pop back to though, Brian, because you sort of were talking about more engagement and letting the players start to log in. And particularly because we're talking about youth sports, I'm wondering how you sort of toe the line with, more of this parental concern, or just larger societal concern about, social media and the impact that it's having on kids. And you're seeing more and more of like the assembly bill that just passed in California with the Phone Free School Act, and this push towards, hey, let's hold back on kids on social media because of its negative repercussions to their mental health, and how it sort of creates this false, impossible sort of model to live up to and all that stuff. So I'm wondering how you negotiate and navigate that as you sort of grow your company into being more, having the players have that access.
Yeah, so I follow a lot of that closely. I really liked reading The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt that goes
Yes.
into some of these topics.
I'm reading that
The
right
way,
now. Yeah.
Nice.
it's very appropriate, right? In some of the lessons, but the way I believe that technology can be really powerful is in if it enables people to get closer to their passions. And I think that's what's neat about our relationship with sport is by definition, sport is happening, at least how we define it, in real life, on the field, is a physical activity. So everything that we're doing is trying to put that front and center, and then helping kids or families, whether it's utility, how to get there or how to commute or how to communicate, our engagement of, interacting with coaches, preparing for the next game
Mm.
around that actual event or activity. So
So it's less about like posting, "Hey, we won," and now everybody can see my post. Like, is it less about that? Or I'm sort of trying to get a picture of it because I can imagine that would sort of increase the anxiety seeing everybody doing so well and you feeling like left behind, or because it's more personal in your interaction.
as we go more, so we've been very focused, and a lot of these apps are focused on utility. There's a rain out. I need a carpool. I need to get to the game. It starts at
Got it.
3:45. It's at field
Yeah.
2. As we get more to engagement, what we're thinking a lot about is how to enhance the experience. So, how can you give them drills to improve? How can you let them
Mm.
relive the moments that, that are most vivid? How can they communicate or support each other
Right.
on and off the field? So, we're just going down that path because until you really nail the utility of helping the parent and the kid get to the event and activity, that's what, Rajiv, if you have 4 kids, that's the weekend schedule is like the battle, right?
That
And
became our life. Yes.
only once all that's figured out can you sit back and say, oh, let me see those highlights of my kid, or let me, help him get better training or do some drills in the backyard on his own. But I think we look at it very much as how do you connect kids to their passion in a productive and positive way? I will say there is a lot to be learned from esports. Esports borrowed a lot from real life sports, the name itself, right? Tournaments, teams, uniforms. But I think what I've learned from esports is they quickly iterate to what is most interesting or engaging. They use data in different ways to help them figure out the rules of the game or the way to participate.
Mm.
Kids are oftentimes don't need adult supervision in order to play in events or tournaments
Mm-hmm.
on some of the gaming platforms. It's oftentimes like quickly iterating into like a new version of the game. So I think there are some of those things that actual physical sports need to be more willing and open.
So looking at like engagement metrics or sharing metrics, or maybe there's a way they evaluate things, kind of thumbs up, thumbs down as a way of building.
We're trying to help. We're trying to help a lot of our organizations understand retention. Like,
Yeah.
why are kids not playing in first grade when they played in kindergarten, soccer or t-ball? And how can we send them a message or a survey or figure some of that stuff out? Because you have a churn problem, and they look at me like, "What is churn? Is that like a butter, making device or something?" No. You're losing your kids. They're quitting or retiring from sport at first, second, or third grade because they didn't have a great experience. Like, how can we learn from that? Was it a coach that wasn't good? Was the field not there? Was it not fun enough? We're spending a lot of time thinking about t-ball. Is that still the best game introduction to baseball? Are there other ways to introduce kids to baseball? You have to
Cool. I love
recognize
that.
kids' brains are wired differently now. And this is what the book says. And they're used to things like more data and used to things like more connectivity. So a sport like baseball that is sometimes more nuanced and slower paced. When is it appropriate to play 9-on-9, and when should you do running bases and home run derbies for the kids, right? And I think that's hard for any individual operator to say, I'm going to change the rules of the game
Mm.
in my league, in my town, in my state, without having without having data or videos or support or other organizations around the country who are also going to say, we're also going to do this because we did this and we saw kids play baseball every year and didn't churn and didn't leave the program. So I think there's opportunities to innovate and there's opportunities to create new types of experience for kids.
It's about time that T-ball gets disrupted. It's about damn time.
And
I never liked
T-ball. And there's some good formats that are trying to do that. There's one called Quick Pitch, which is different rules. But I think what happens, and this is to the point of innovation, it's hard for any one local operator to say we're no longer going to do T-ball. And all the parents, how can you not do T-ball? Every other community does T-ball. So if you want to innovate in local sports, you either have to have someone who's super entrepreneurial and a visionary, or you have to make it easier for them to do that. You have to have more ways of helping them say it's okay to try a different format or a different game. And I think some of the sports that are doing that are the ones that are getting ahead. Tennis has done a nice job where there's red ball and green ball and there's different size courts, and like everyone kind of follows these rules now, and it's much more appropriate than having a 4-year-old trying to play on a full size tennis court. So I think for every sport, there's ways of reimagining the experience so that kids can enjoy it at an age appropriate level, so that they are getting the most out of it. And then as they grow and as they learn, they could play with different rules or different size fields.
Yeah, it's a great innovation. I mean, even in soccer, they went 4v4, 7v7, 9v9, then 11v11, right? There's so many, and you could share those best practices and experiences because you have a wider platform where you can show people what worked and maybe have training videos.
That's great.
Do you find that there are influencers and athletes that involve itself with LeagueApp as part of that? You have that MLB tie-up. Are they helping you? Are they partnering with you?
Yeah, I think Major League Baseball, I want to speak for them, is very invested in the future of the game. And I think they're able to take a longer term view of what is positive. And one of the things we work with them a lot on is their ability to provide baseball experiences in underserved communities. So they have a program called RBI, which is reviving baseball in inner cities. They have academies in certain communities. And what they're saying is we want to expose baseball to all these different types of communities. And we've helped them set up, the infrastructure and work with those operators in those communities to help make it easier for them to provide baseball. And MLB provides a bunch of resources, a bunch of training, a bunch of uniforms and equipment in order to help more communities have opportunities to play baseball.
They've had a huge reduction. I mean, since the heyday of the 70s, 80s, right, of African American players. I mean, just like a huge drop off. And so, I imagine that's why they're pursuing this initiative, right?
Yeah, what they're doing is saying if we don't get involved, who will? We have the ability and influence to have impact on how kids participate with the game and with the sport, and they're doing that in a bunch of different ways. And I think it's good for community, it's good for business, it's good for the next generation of baseball fans. Kids who play sports are more likely to be, consumers and fans and of the sport moving forward. So the way to evolve sports is for those that have the most often, and we work with many of the professional sports leagues because those who have the most resource and the most sophistication often also have the most ability to influence it. And I think for the past generation, it was left to towns and local municipalities to run sport. And what happened is a swell of private enterprising, entrepreneurial, innovative individuals came in, said, oh, I care more. And I'm so passionate about this. I want to make it my livelihood. And rather than being an educator and a coach on the side, I'm going to do this full time. And they've done a great job of providing better, more modern sports experiences than often the town leagues or some of the existing organizations. I think what has happened is they've often had to go up market to competitive and travel and club because that is the best, business supported opportunity. And I think it's left a little bit of a void of really quality experiences that are more recreational and more in town or more on social emotional development. And I think that can be another opportunity that I'm eager to see filled by innovators coming in and saying, how do we create great team experiences that don't have to tie into competitive or travel or a kind of expensive investments in order to participate?
So Brian, so you got it into there's multiple levels, right? There's the more professional organizers, there's the recreational side, there's multiple levels. So when you think about, but now you guys have numbers to hit, right? You have investors, you have numbers, you have growth to hit, you serve the community as part of that. What's your go-to-market? How do you enable your team to hit growth? What kind of goals do you set for them? And then what kind of marketing strategies and tactics do they use to grow the business?
Sure. So ultimately, we believe, we can partner with all types of organizations. And one of the things we did early on, and that has really evolved, is we started something called Fun Play, with the idea that any organization that shared our values and had great principles should be able to use LeagueApps, whether they can afford it economically or have budget to invest in it or not. So that gives me a lot of pride that any organization can use LeagueApps, and cost is not going to get in the way. And we've developed a Fun Play, and we give a percentage of our revenue and resources to supporting that. And we have hundreds of organizations now in our Fun Play group, and many of them are the most inspiring because those are the ones that truly are mission oriented and are doing this without any type of like profit motivation or even resourced to kind of do the things that they're able to accomplish. That being said, we find that the organizations that recognize the value of technology are often the ones that are getting ahead. Sometimes that's in sports like lacrosse and volleyball. They're often like quick to recognize what works and make those investments. We've recognized over the years that a direct approach, having a sales and partnerships team connecting directly with the operators within the community, getting to understand what they do and why they do it, is the best way to open up a discussion around how technology can help provide a solution. As you can imagine, they're not sitting around saying, "Oh, today I'm going to do another demo of another platform as part of my job." No one thinks that. But the three questions I like to ask any operator is, how'd you get into this? How'd you get involved? What makes your organization unique? And where do you want this organization to be 5 years from now? And I feel like when I ask those three questions to a sports, one, they'll open up and you'll just see the passion and the care, right? And then two, when they answer those three questions, you can usually then connect back to how better software and a better partner can help them achieve those goals, can help them be the unique organization they want, and can help them, connect back to why they got involved in operating sports. And they all are so proud of that story, whether it's because a family member or a community or something that they wanted to do. What I often say is anyone who's really good at organizing sports, even if they're, doing it profitably, can make a lot more money doing something else. And then no one got into it because their uncle forced them into it after college, right? Or when they went professional, when they started their professional career.
No Indian parent ever said you must be a coach, sports coach, or a tournament organizer.
Well, so, at least not. Yeah, at least
they say doctor, lawyer, engineer, but they won't say that.
Yeah.
Or in Sandeep's case, a comedian. I mean, not many Indian parents say that.
A podcast
not a ton.
Or co-host.
Yeah. No, that's not. Yeah, that was never on track. Yeah. There's a glow about when these Indian parents introduce their kids and they're a doctor and an engineer. They're never like, my son, the podcast host. I just look at him. He's a great podcaster. You love his voice. Okay.
But you see those parents on the sideline now, and they are coaching their kids more.
Oh, yeah. I think we're seeing a lot more.
They're acting as refs, and they see the value of this, of getting involved like that. So that's some of your that's their sales strategy, right? Go and understand the goals of the different organizations, open them up, and then get them into a conversation about how your capability helps. And what if they already are using someone else? What if they're using
once we get them to a demo, which we do over Zoom, and it's about an hour, then we know what our conversion rates are from there. So a lot of it is building rapport and relationship to get them to open up, to share it, where we can then better understand their pain points or where their workflows are. A collection. A lot of times they have issues collecting. No one wants to chase down parents who didn't pay for their kids' youth sports, right? So we make a lot of that seamless and automated to do it in a way where the funds get collected in the right way without having to show up at people's house. What we see is we go out to fields, we go to tournaments, we go to conventions, we go to conferences, we do a lot of thought leadership. We have our next up event coming up in New York City where we'll have 400 sports operators. So we'll our sales and partnership team are mostly former athletes or coaches or sometimes like volunteers in communities. So the most of those initial conversations are a lot more about the organization and their vision for it than around, functionality that they need in the platform. And we think that's pretty cool, right? Ultimately, we want to be a partner and a teammate to their organization more than we want to have slick features, that they may or may not use.
That's awesome. So you have a very clever way of getting them to learn, and then a great way to get them to switch potentially from other things or maybe upgrade. And it's a smart way to go to use existing or former players, coaches, et cetera, to engage because they can relate to each other easily.
It's time now, Brian. I mean, this has been fun and joyful, but it's now time to put, your mettle to the test. So, welcome back to our dear listeners, our fellow entrepreneurs, the men and women that are in the arena themselves, working on their own businesses. We're going to put Brian and Rajiv into the Spark Tank. This is where two founders enter and one, well, let's just say they might need a little help to find their footing. It's like a startup pitch, but with higher risk of face planting. Today, we're ditching the spreadsheets and lacing up our sneakers because we're putting your knowledge, Brian and Rajiv, of bizarre and unusual sports to the test. Okay. That's the category. In one corner, we've got Brian Litvack, the CEO and co-founder of LeagueApps, the mastermind behind the youth sports management platform that's giving local sports leaders the tools they need to reach the championship. And in the other corner, we've got my brother Rajiv, who's the guy who's run 4 marathons, but also managed to throw out his back while sneezing. So that's a true story. I'm rooting for you, Brian, even though you're a Yankees fan. Ugh, gross. But don't worry, we're going to be.
Rajiv, I tip my hat to you. I'm about to run my first 5K, so 4 marathons is quite impressive.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
All right, let's go.
All right,
play.
So here
I'm just buttering up, Sandy.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing.
The game. Yeah, all of a sudden the answers will change.
Yeah, we're going to be serving here. Here's how this works. We're going to be serving up 3 descriptions of unusual sports. 2 of them are true. 1 is a total lie, like A-Rod's career. So let's see who can spot the corked bat, like the one Bucky Dent definitely used, and who's going to be swinging with the real deal. All right. Those are my 2 Yankees.
Man, those are good.
Those are good disses. Those are good disses.
Thank you so much. Round 1. This is about bizarre and unusual games of the past. So, number 1, plunge for distance was an actual early Olympic sport where competitors would dive into a pool and try to glide underwater without moving their limbs for as long as possible. The record was an astonishing 63.5 meters. Number 2, scurry ball. A popular medieval sport involving teams of players riding donkeys and attempting to herd a flock of geese into a designated goal using only their voices and hand gestures. Number 3, during the Mughal Empire in India, Emperor Akbar had a life-size Parcheesi board built in his courtyard where his courtesans served as game pieces and moved according to the rolls of giant dice.
Akbar,
Two of these are true. One of them is false. 1, 2, or 3. Here we go.
Oh, wait.
3.
So
you want to review? Number 1 is plunge for distance. Number 2 is scurry ball, the medieval game with riding donkeys. And number 3 is the life-size Parcheesi board in India. Okay, ready?
All right.
3, 2, 1. Let's see your answers. So Rajiv, you have guessed plunge for distance. Brian, you have guessed scurry ball as the false answer. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Moving out to an early lead is our visitor, Brian Litvack. Well done. Yes, scurry ball is not a real sport. I know it sounds really fun to get on a donkey. And
I feel like plunge for distance was like half of my 3rd grade swim class was going as far as you can underwater.
There you go. So it used to be an Olympic sport. Crazy.
That's crazy.
Tug of war was an Olympic sport too. Just a little side as I was doing my research. I was like, I didn't realize that.
Scurry ball is a game that needs to be invented.
It needs to happen.
It's a different form of innovation. It sounds amazing.
Let's add it to the app.
Scurryball rules.
I'm a motivated league organizer in my area.
Did you just
Brian,
did you invent Scurryball? Like, where would you read about a fall sport for this game?
This is better than Quidditch. Okay.
I did invent Scurryball. Yes, indeed. I got some spare donkeys, Brian, if you want to try it out. Okay, here we go.
Ride my donkey.
All right. These are wild and unusual games of the present. That was the past. We're now in the present. So number 1, Bossa Ball is a mix of volleyball, soccer, gymnastics, and capoeira played on an inflatable court with trampolines on each side of the net. Number 2, wife carrying is a sport that originated in Finland where male competitors race while carrying their wives on their backs. The winner is determined by the fastest time. Statement number 3, canine ultimate frisbee is a sport where humans and their furry friends play ultimate frisbee together. The dogs, of course, are always the receivers because they obviously can't throw yet. All right. So those are your 3 current sports that maybe or maybe do not exist. Number 1, Bossa Ball, the mix of all these sports with trampolines. Wife carrying, the sport in Finland, or canine ultimate frisbee. 2 of these are true. 1 of them is false. Please give me your number 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you both definitely think that canine ultimate frisbee is correct. Rajiv thought Bossa Ball was not, and Brian thought wife carrying was BS. Well, guess what?
Brian
You are both wrong. So it turns out, yes, you can play a rousing game of Bossa Ball or wife carrying, but you cannot, in fact, yet. I don't know if maybe I invented another sport.
That seems
play
so
canine
obvious.
ultimate frisbee.
That seems like an obvious sport. No.
I think that maybe players would get
want
bit.
The dogs messing with each other. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, like, how would you get the dog to stop, like, exactly where they caught the ball or the frisbee? Anyway, I think it would be complicated.
They catch it and drop it.
Yeah, I guess it's good training would have to be a part of it too.
Yeah, that's true.
Brian, why'd you think?
If you told me husband carrying was the sport, I would believe it because my wife takes care of everything and helps the family get by. So I give her the credit there. But wife carrying just seemed like
unbelievable,
archaic, and
archaic,
ridiculous.
Like,
I just couldn't imagine it happening in Finland.
Like, how would they?
I could see it happening in other
places.
Make
it an official sport. Wife carrying just seems like something to escape the elephants or hyenas.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe that's how it originated, and you're right. I think in 2024 it should be spouse carrying, and
yes,
politically
if it was spouse carrying.
It's time to Title IX this thing and let's get representation on both sides. All right. So maybe that's another thing your app can work on. All right. So round 3, these are wild games of the future, meaning that these are new sports that involve technology in really wildly interesting ways that are happening. 2 of these are happening. All right. So number 1, the Exo games. Though still experimental, athletes have competed in BattleBots meets MMA style competition with exoskeletons that enhance their physical capabilities. So if you ever watch BattleBots, now you put the humans in there, that kind of thing. Statement 2 is drone racing. So pilots navigate high-speed drones through complex obstacle courses, competing for the fastest time. And the races are often viewed through a first-person view goggles, giving spectators an immersive experience as if they're flying the drones themselves. Number 3 is augmented reality dodgeball. So AR dodgeball. Players wear AR headsets that overlay visual targets and power-ups in the real-world environment. This adds a new layer of strategy and excitement to the classic game as players can dodge virtual projectiles and unleash special abilities. So 1 of these is false. 2 of them are true. Again, a quick review. 1 is the exoskeleton game. 2 is drone racing. And 3 is augmented reality dodgeball. Your answer is in 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, you both answered the same thing, which essentially means that Brian is going to be our victor. But you both thought exoskeletons.
Can I change mine just to BS push for a winner?
Will you allow it, Brian?
I mean, this is nepotism at its worst, right here.
I'm not allowing it. I'm asking the competitor if you want to give him the opportunity
to get. I'm going to.
That's okay. You know what? Keep going.
You can take
Sandeep has a
Brian, guess what? You're going to win anyway. Let him do it.
I thought 3D dodgeball seems so great. I hope it's a real thing.
I'll go all or nothing and do AR Dodgeball.
AR dodgeball. Well, guess what, Brian? You doubly won. Exoskeletons are indeed the false one. So 2-0. You take it. Yes, AR dodgeball like actually exists, and I'm telling you, I want to play this. This sounds
It
so
seems
fun.
great.
It sounds great.
Like you,
that's it. That's an example of a more engagement for already amazing game.
yeah, exactly. So they wear these AR headsets and wrist sensors, and then they can interact with virtual energy balls and shields and like all these things that you can power yourself up with, but you're moving your body around. You're playing actual dodgeball. I'm like, I want to play that tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So very cool. But congratulations to Brian. You have entered the arena and you have, you are leaving the victor. Well done.
I love when my guests win.
I want to be able to leave this show with, pride in my professional career of operating sports by winning the sport trivia contest. So, Rajiv, thank you for going easy on me. And Sandeep, thank you for. I don't know where you get a question bank of fake sports, but you've done brilliant.
It's the power of creativity. Sandeep's got it.
Creativity, and I won't tell you that it's also the power of AI. But yeah, there we go. A lot of fun.
All right. So, Brian, a few more questions for you. We'll go really quick because I know we're coming towards the end. So super quick answers. A lot of times we ask our guests to name a historical event or person or movement that inspires you. And at what point you mentioned a person mentioned Poppy? What about him lights you up?
My grandfather came to America as an orphan. And you never got the straight story of how, as a 4-year-old, you get on a ship and go through Belgium and come to the U.S. And it was like a bunch of fuzzy details that would like mystify me my whole childhood, because I was like, I'm 9. I don't know how I would get to, a European country by myself. And I went on to start a shoe manufacturing business in Brooklyn that my father then ran, and had 3 kids and 8 grandchildren. And I was always just amazed at that life journey of his. And I think it always instilled in me wanting to be an entrepreneur and wanting to start something from nothing. So that was always to me my path, and much from the influence that he had on my life. So I'm very fortunate to have a role model like that. By the time I knew him, he was just like an old poppy who was giving me candy and playing sports and buying me presents. And it was hard at the time to understand how hard he worked at life to get to that point where he could be like a retired happy grandpa. But as I got older, I just learned more about all the things he did, not just for himself, but for his family and for my father. And it always kind of rubbed off as I wanted to challenge myself in ways where I can achieve some of the things he achieved, even though I was able to grow up in such a fortunate and loving family and household.
That's awesome. Okay, that's a fantastic answer. I love that. I was
going to say Nelson Mandela. We've had a Nelson Mandela quote in our office. Of every office we've had.
What's that quote? What's the quote that gets you?
Sports has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite us in ways that little else does. So it's such a powerful thing. And if you hear his whole story, not just how he used rugby, but how he played soccer when he was in prison. And there's such connectivity of sport with some of the things that happened in that country, and how he used that to bring people together and unify. That really is just such a great depiction of how sports is so much more than just the game, and how it can kind of bring people together. So
it's a beautiful movie. That movie of
with Matt Damon.
It was just it got me. I was in tears watching it. It was just how he was able to get the country to unite over rugby, which was a game that was a symbol of oppression, and how he used that to really change bring the country together. Post the revolution there, or post him taking power. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's called Invictus.
Invictus.
Yes.
It's just incredible. Okay.
Cool.
Last one. Who in your field do you admire and why?
I'm trying to figure out if I'm in the youth sports field, if I'm in the software SaaS space, right?
Pick both. Pick one of each.
What is the industry? In youth sports, there's a journalist named Tom Farrey who started the Aspen Institute Project Play, And I think he does a really good job of telling it how it is, of what's happening in esports. And then whether it's not good or bad, he just takes the intellectual curiosity of, let me explain how this world and industry has progressed. And anytime I speak with him, I learn quite a bit. And I think he's just kind of put the narrative and articulation and stellar brought thought leaders together. So I appreciate that people like him have come into youth sports and have looked at what we can do there. So and check it out. Project Play is they have a summit every year. That's pretty awesome and pretty neat of what they do. And then in the software space, I'm a student in the game for vertical SaaS and how software could be done in specific industries. So I love to follow companies like Toast, and have had the chance to talk to their CEO, MindBody, which does it in the fitness and wellness space, and a bunch of others that just like have such, to what I said before, truly understand that they're serving the market that they're in more than they're a software company. And I want to take a lot of some of the innovations that they had and bring that to youth sports. And that's super exciting to me. So there's probably 5 or 6 CEOs that have spent time with me in the vertical SaaS SMB software space that there's so much to learn from them and to continue to learn from them. And there's a wealth of knowledge out there that's being published these days of where else you can build software for, entrepreneurs and SMBs and people who've never had software before that can really make a huge impact in those industries.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about with software, you have to create, even though it's B2B software, you have to have a very consumery type of experience. And I think you totally nailed it with Toast and
you got to know your customers' problems so deeply and what it actually means. And like the features in our platform that are most valuable are ones that you would never understand. It's about someone making a tryout team and automatically being formed on a team and the information going with them and the payment carrying over. That saves like hundreds of hours of time and aggravation. So I think taking pride in just like really understanding the space that you're in and building software for that space is something that, when I often get asked what differentiates you, they want to hear some huge answer like we have video highlights that automatically get created through AI. And it's often about features that no one would understand unless you are a sports operator yourself.
That's right. It's making it super easy, super engaging, enabling the next use. So it's hard to do that well. And so kudos to you for thinking about those types of applications as well as a focus on youth sports. So, Brian, really happy to have you on the show today. It was a real thrill to learn from you and have you there. Kudos to our producer, Anand, for, thinking about you, one of your best teammates ever. And he must have had a similar experience to want to bring you here. And so, I really hope you succeed. For me, my kids are older, but those youth soccer or youth sports or dance experiences or choir experiences with my kids were my favorite experiences of just sitting with them, driving with them for hours, sometimes coaching them on the field. And it's great that you've built a platform to make it much easier, because I've actually operated that from a league level, and it can make all the difference in the world. And how the satisfaction of the organizer and the coach really matters in this. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Knocked it out of the park.
That was amazing. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the pod, please take a moment to rate and comment. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts can be found.
This show is produced by myself, Rajiv Parikh, and Anand Shah. Production assistance by Taryn Talley and edited by Sean Mara and Aiden McGarvey.
I'm your host, Rajiv Parikh from Position Squared, an AI-enabled growth marketing company based in Silicon Valley. Come visit us at position2.com.
This has been an Effin' Funny production.
And we'll catch you next time. And remember, folks, be ever curious.